Today we have the band Tailgunner to talk about the new release. They are releasing their second album. It's called Midnight Blitz, out on February 6th via Napalm Records. And if you like heavy metal or bands with new wave British of heavy metal style, I'm sure you're gonna like this. This album is full of energy with that 80s atmosphere and with a modern touch, if I can say this. And with me today, I have Thomas to talk about the release and to talk about other things. Thank you so much to talk to me today. I'm very happy you have time for this conversation.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, before we talk about the album, I'd like to talk about the production, because I heard you had any special helping in this album. It was with Kenneth Donny, right?
Yeah.
And I like to, if you don't know, Kenneth was the guitarist of Judas Priest, and he produced the album of the band Tailgunner. And I want to know, how was it for you work with him? How this relationship happened?
Yeah, I mean, we started to work with KK because we put out our debut EP Crash Dive in December 2022, and someone got that EP to him and he loved it and, you know, reached out to us and invited us to open the first KK's Priest show alongside Paul Diano as well. So that was, you know, a really amazing night for us. We'd been going just over a year and it was our first big show. And, you know, he said to us the first time we met that he'd been waiting for a band like us to come along since the early days of Def Leppard. So it was a really great vision of everything that we, you know, desire to achieve as a band. And we kept in touch, did a UK tour in the summer of 2024 with KK's Priest. And then when it came time to find a producer for this album, you know, we knew all of the experience that he had co-producing all of those classic Priest albums alongside Halford, Tipton and Tom Allen. And so, you know, we just thought, fuck it, we'll just give him a call. And, you know, I spent a couple of days back and forth on the phone with him. And yeah, I'm really glad that he was into the idea, and it turned out great for us. So it was a really cool thing to work with him, and you know, not just for the lessons that we learned for this album, but their lessons that will carry forward with us for the rest of our careers.
And how do you think he influenced this new work?
You know, KK didn't write anything on the record, but he was a fantastic producer. He really made us think twice or 200 times about every single little detail. He really made us, you know, pay attention to every single note, every single second. And I think that's the biggest thing we learned from him, is to consider every single thing.
Nice. You're very young, right? So how old are you? Can I ask this?
Now, we're all in our 20s, but, you know, we like to keep people guessing. Why not?
Okay, I'm sorry. Because I think you are a really young band, and we are having great time and doing a great work. This is my commentary. It's not about exactly about the age.
Well, the band is only 4 years old, at least, anyway.
Okay. So let's talk about the album, The Midnight Blitz. I want to say that the first thing that caught my attention was the reference you did to the movie The Lost Boys and the song Dead Until Dark. I really like this movie. And I want to know, why did you choose exactly this movie?
I chose it because when I wrote the lyrics for that song, it took me a while to write those lyrics. And I think musically it's a little different. It's a little more direct and commercial sounding than our other songs. I wasn't sure what to write the lyrics about. And when I was sat writing them, I was sat in a flat that I used to live in, and there was a big Lost Boys movie poster on the. And it was just sat staring at me whilst I was working on the lyrics. So in the end, you know, it influenced me or convinced me to write a song about the Lost Boys. But I think it's a really cool subject to write a heavy metal track about. And, you know, it turned out really great. We shot a video for that song back in December, and that'll be out sometime this year. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
Nice. And the movie, it's really captured that 80s atmosphere. It's very nice. It's a very good idea. But I can see that we don't have just this movie, you have another one. In another song, Tears in Rain, I can see a reference of Blade Runner, right?
Yeah, there's a huge Blade Runner reference, particularly obviously in that track, but throughout the album, there's this sort of running theme of those that are, discussed so much in Blade Runner, of the finite nature of life and mortality, and dealing with that whole concept. So to have one song that really focuses on that, I think was important. And Blade Runner informed so many of the aesthetics of this record. If you look at the photos and things that we did for this album, there's a real big Blade Runner theme throughout.
So it's more about the idea of the movies than the specifically about the movie, because one movie is about vampires and the others is cyberpunk, so it's very different.
Yeah, the songs aren't at all related, and that theme throughout the album doesn't apply to every song,
I have seen things you would not believe. Now all those moments are very...
The song Eulogy. This song that has a bit of speed metal on it, and I can perceive different styles of metal. I know the idea is new wave of British heavy metal and capture all the 80s things, but how is it for you when you choose this kind of styles to mixture in the album?
We're not just paying attention to the NWOBHM. I think that would be really limited. It's not really what we're about as a band, as much as that is a huge inspiration for us. We love all sorts of heavy metal, and Dio, Megadeth, Merciful Fate, so many classic amazing bands that are not NWOBHM. And for something like Eulogy, we're hugely inspired by Halloween and Blind Guardian, and
nice.
We to write a song that really, sort of leans into those influences and pays tribute to that. So we've been saying since day one that one of our biggest influences is Halloween, and I think people are a bit surprised when we put out like a power metal song, but it's, we've said that we love Halloween. So
I love Halloween too. You are a current band inspired in the 80s sound. And what new things do you add in your sound?
Well, the thing is with the 80s that so many people forget is that it was a decade of real innovation. And bands like Priest, Maiden, Venom, Motorhead, they were all doing something new. They didn't just sound like Deep Purple and Sabbath and Rainbow and those bands. They took it forward. And that's what we're trying to do in the modern day, is not just worship at the altar of these bands, but try to stand upon it ourselves with our own identity. And it doesn't make us any less heavy metal or any less 80s or whatever, but you can't just copy what someone else did. You have to try and do your own thing with it.
Okay. And talking about the lyrics, I realized that you bring the theme of war in your songs, but I felt it's more related to emotional battles than the real ones.
Yeah, exactly right.
And the war theme is very common in heavy metal. The real war is very common in heavy metal. Could this be a way of reinterpreting the new waves of the style, the heavy metal style?
I think war is, like you say, it's a common theme in metal. It's a good thing to write songs about, heavy metal songs about. It lends itself very well. But yeah, for us, it's more about the human side of war and the emotional side of war and all of the things that brings up. We're not a band that sing about literal things about, this happened here with these people. We'll leave that sort of stuff to Sabaton.
Okay. So how do you guys do this together? Because we have many ideas, many references, and different people, I think, in the band. How do you put all these ideas together?
Well, I think every band has to have someone in charge, has to have a leader. And that falls onto my shoulders for better or worse. So everyone in the band can create, but it's within the framework of what Tailgunner should be. And I think that keeps us focused. We know who we are, we know what we want to do, so it's easy.
Okay. Do you think you have a favorite song in this band, or this is not possible?
I don't have one, but there's, you know, some songs that I'm really proud of on this new album. Barren Lands and Seas of Red, I really like. Dead Until Dark is a big one for me, and the title track. But yeah, there's many. I like the of making an album. You know, I'm proud of the album as a whole.
Nice. Just one comment I want to make is that one of my favorite songs is War in Heaven. It's the ballad of the album, and for me, that it has that feeling of supplication and redemption at the same time, and it's very nice. You could make more songs like that.
Yeah, maybe we will. Maybe we'll write some more ballads now. We've proven to ourselves that we can write one.
Okay, so let's talk about the tours. You toured with Hammerfall this January. How was the experience for you?
Amazing. Hammerfall and their crew, the tour manager, right down to the bus driver, are the nicest guys that we've toured with so far. They were really, really amazing. And the fans were incredible, you know, especially in Spain. I have to say, we'd never been there before, and people were singing along to everything, even the guitar solos, you know. So it felt like being the headline band on most nights, and that was really special for us. We had a great time, and, you know, hopefully we'll be back out with Hammerfall at some point.
Very good. So I'd like to ask you something I always ask to the artists. That it's about Brazil, because I'm from Brazil, I'm here, and I'd like to ask you about Brazil. What do you know about the country, if you have plans to come to visit us?
We'd love to. There's nothing planned right now, but I'm sure that we'll get to South America and Brazil on this album. We want to tour all over the world with this record. So the debut, you know, we played 14 countries. I think so far for this, we have like 20 booked. But let's see how many places we can come this time. You know, we're really determined to come down to South America, and of course, we've heard all of the stories, so looking forward to it.
Nice, can't wait to see you guys here. And always when I talk about Brazil with the other artists, they always reference the Iron Maiden's live in Brazil. It's a big reference always. So do you have any references about Brazil?
Well, yeah, I'd have to also mention the Rock in Rio stuff. It's incredible. I grew up listening to Iron Maiden's Rock in Rio album, and obviously watching the 80s stuff as well, you know, with Maiden and AC/DC, Guns N' Roses and Judas Priest at Rock in Rio. So that's my reference. You know, I know about Angra as well. Cool band.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much to talk to me. It was very nice. Congratulations for your release. It's very cool, and I hope to see you in Brazil soon.
Thank you very much. I'll speak to you soon. Hopefully see you soon.
Bye.